Today I'm joined by culinary genius, chef and creator of Kfir Ross. Welcome to Made By. Let's make a ring. I want to talk about your beginnings. What was your first experience in the kitchen?
Okay, so I was extremely lucky in the sense that I grew up eating home-cooked meals every single night. My mother challenged herself to create something different and new and not repeat. Eventually she needed help, and with two younger siblings, it was my responsibility to, make the salad and then the rice, and it progressed, and that's where it began. And that's where it continued for many years after that.
It sounds like your mum is almost the roots of your inspiration through cooking. Was she a really important person to you and your journey through cooking?
Absolutely. So my mother played a big part in all of my cooking. Initially in the home-cooked meals, eating every night, sitting around the table, but it really progressed when I understood the importance of something my people call Shabbat, which is the act of sitting around a table eating an incredibly intricate home-cooked meal surrounded by people that you love or may not even know.
I want to know more about Shabbat. It sounds like an experience that's both equally about the food as it is about sharing it with others. Talk me through what Shabbat means to you.
The concept of Shabbat is really beautiful because traditionally it's an opportunity to sit down and eat incredible food with people that you love. And I watched my mother slave away from morning till night to feed our family and strangers and whoever it was that she welcomed to the table. And again, she started needing help, and I'd help her in the kitchen, and we'd cook together for our guests, and eventually those guests became mine and I was cooking for them.
Brilliant. That's a really beautiful transition from watching your mum cook, feeling inspired by her, and then eventually taking that onto your own shoulders. Do you feel like you are, picking up on all of her little teachings and learnings along the way, or are you taking it completely in a new avenue?
Absolutely. I mean, she taught me so much. Her style of cooking is very different to the style of cooking that I do now, but it all started somewhere. And she taught me the passion for it. She criticized herself and she challenged herself, and often the food wasn't good enough to her standards, even though it was incredible to us. And that was the passion, I guess, that I saw in that behind the food, and I love that.
It totally seems like your mum's passion for cooking has completely, come through in you as well. What is it about food that you think is so beautiful, so important? What makes it special to you?
First and foremost, I think you can taste hard work. I think when someone puts a lot of effort into a meal, you can see that, and it just makes it taste better. Secondly, the power of food and what it can do to a table, which actually plays a big part in what we're doing with Kef. And an inspiration for that, but to have a medium that everyone can resonate with and talk about is awesome. And the more intricate the food is, the more discussion there is behind it. And it's a medium that carries conversation. So regardless of whether you're catching up about your day and eating good food or talking about the food that you're eating, you've always got something to resonate with whoever you're sitting around the table with. And I think that's really beautiful.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think you're speaking about this really interesting intersection that food can be for both people, conversation, and catching up and spending time with the people that you care about. You mentioned Kef there, and that is the project I first came across what you were doing through your supper clubs. I would love to know what the original idea behind it was. Why did you start it?
That's an awesome follow-up because I love the food and I love feeding people, but Shabbat was the inspiration for it all. And that's sitting down around a table with people that you may not know or know really well, and just being able to chat with them about this food that you both appreciate is unreal. And what we first started with Kef was the goal of connecting people. And it was a big passion project where I liked cooking and I liked doing what I was doing and people liked eating what I was cooking. And I thought there was a bit of a hole for it, honestly. So we started and people really loved what we were putting down and coming and meeting new people and coming on their own. And as I said, just resonating over this flow of food that goes over the course of 2 hours, and either they have discussion about life or they talk about the food, but they've always got something to discuss, which is awesome.
Yeah, I think that's a really beautiful idea, and the way you've brought people together through food I find really, really inspirational. I think the way you've done it is particularly unique with your supper clubs and the sort of events side of things, where you're not just serving people food, but like you said, you're delivering an experience at a table. What was the inspiration about going beyond food and creating an experience around it that was so special and important to you?
I like the action of being hospitable. And I'm 22. I didn't study how to cook. I'm quite self-taught. I'm not the best chef out there. Mm-hmm. There's so many better than me, and I'm on this journey now to develop and grow my strengths. But people can go to restaurants and they can sit in a restaurant and they can have a meal. What they can't do is they can't go sit in the comfort of someone's home and enjoy a restaurant-like meal surrounded with people that that they're like-minded with, and that they resonate with. And I think that was the drive, to connect people over food.
Yeah, and you've done such an incredible job of embodying that in what you now call or have called Supper Club. Like I said, that was the first thing that I sort of came across what you were doing. I'd love to dial it back. Talk me through the first time you did Supper Club. Were you nervous? Were you worried? Give me the whole spiel. How are you feeling about running this first ever event?
The first time I ran a Supper Club, I had hosted a lot of people at my house in the past, so I had a general idea of what was going on with the food a little bit, but I didn't know if it was a concept that people would enjoy. I didn't know if it was a concept that people would connect with. There was a crew doing it a couple years before we started, but they ended up moving. And there was a hole for it. Why was no one doing it? I sold our first tickets to friends only. It was a free-flowing 10-course menu event for $70. I think like 50 hours of labor went into it over everyone. And it killed. Everyone was extremely happy. The glasses of wine that they had actually helped them to connect. They were all my friends, but they weren't all friends. And I tried to space them out so they weren't sitting together. And they loved it. And it was awesome. And it went really well. And by the time we threw our second supper club, it was 50% people that I didn't know, which was unreal.
That's incredible. It sounds like the concept that you feel so strongly about, other people are also connecting with. Your first one is just with friends. It takes me back to running our first ever ring making class, feeling super, super nervous. Were there any nerves, or was it all excitement at the time?
I'm always nervous. Going into every single dinner, I've got butterflies, but it's nerves that I care, And when people tell me they're nervous, when people are part of the team tell me that they're nervous, I tell them that's a good thing. I'm always nervous, but it's a feeling of excitement, the butterflies, I guess, is what it is.
Yeah, and I think it's also like a great indicator that you care. You're only going to be nervous about the things that you feel like there's something on the line that you really care about and you're passionate about. So I think, yeah, having nerves and having butterflies is totally normal when it's something that you're doing that is so passionate, or you feel so passionate about the things that you're doing. So we have this beautiful beginning in your mum's kitchen. You're starting to cook with her, eventually almost running the kitchen yourself. I know since then you've worked, a career almost in hospitality, or you have some experience as a chef. Can you talk me through your career so far, being paid to cook?
Absolutely. So it actually started with my privilege and having such an awesome, supportive family. When I was 13 or 14, I was holding school holiday camps every term break. We'd invite, or not invite, my brother's friend, my little sibling's friends, brother and sister, they would come and they'd pay $50 a head for us to look after them for the whole day and teach them how to go through a recipe book of different really simple dishes. But they really enjoyed that, and I really enjoyed teaching them that, and it was really fun. It then progressed. I jumped straight into hospitality. I was working takeaway. I did 2.5 years in a market stall in the Bondi Market, and I was at an Ocean Foods, a fish shop for 2.5 years as well. I worked at a catering company, and I was bouncing just during high school, working in hospitality, behind the scenes, front of house, because I loved it and I really enjoyed it. When I graduated high school, as COVID started, I jumped into a restaurant called Shafa in Surrey Hills. They had just opened, and COVID was a blessing in disguise for me because there were no hospitality workers coming through, and my eagerness and keenness led to me being the assistant manager of that venue. I gave them a lot of my heart and my soul and my time, and I really fell in love with that first glimpse of nightlife hospitality, and how sexy and awesome it could be. And working in takeaway and front of house takeaway my whole life, I hadn't really had a glimpse of that yet. But so when I did, and the refined sort of level of cooking, something clicked. So I was with them for a while. I bounced over to manage a really good friend's poke bowl spot where I met Tamika. And I was with them for a year. He gave me loads of creative freedom, pushing specials. As long as the front of house section was all tight, he let me jump in the kitchen and practice and make mistakes and learn through that. That's sort of when I realized that if I was going to be in hospitality for good, I'd need to have a good understanding of every single avenue. And I love to cook. And I'd met some pretty awesome people on the way that landed me a job at Sean's Panorama in Bondi. The head chef, Sam, there was my first real head chef, and he was an incredibly inspirational guy for me. Watching him and Sean Moran working together and sourcing all their local produce and working with that and pulling refined cooking back, simply in highlighting this awesome produce that was accessible to us in Australia.
Do you also go through Barker Pains? I think you're still working there.
After Sean's, or during Sean's, that's when I launched Kfir. I just fell in love with it so quickly and I always knew I wanted to do something that Kfir came about a couple months after I started. And when I finished with Sean's, 6 or 7 or 8 months after that, I bounced over to Barker Pains, and I was with them for a year. And the guys behind Barker Pains are also just ridiculously talented, and I was extremely lucky. I worked hard for it, but they took me in and they gave me a lot of trust, and they taught me a lot, and I'm extremely grateful for that. Yeah.
Beautiful. There's so much to unpack along that journey. I really want to take it to this pin drop moment. You said in the first almost real or proper kitchen that you were working on, something clicked. What was it? What was that moment for you?
Seeing the passion and the amount of work that went behind delivering the result that these guys are putting out. It's that simple. Hard work equals success, almost. And I learned that through the front of house and the owners that I was working for whilst I was working front of house. But the back of house, it's a different story. The amount of work that they're putting in, and to produce a product that they're happy with. They're not willing to send something out that they're not happy with, and if that means working like a dog, then so be it. It means working like a dog, and I've realized that myself as well.
Yeah, beautiful. And it seems like it's hard work, it's long hours. There's plenty of challenges being a chef, being a maker of food. Can you talk me through a few of them? Give us some insights.
I think Kef's got some specific challenges in what we do. Because it is a passion project, so far just a big practice for what's to come for me. We're obviously quite limited in our resources and where we're working, and I've been working out of a home kitchen for the last year, and that's the first challenge. So not easy, and it's really difficult. Same, washing massive boxes out of a tiny kitchen sink, but I'm not willing to sacrifice the product that we put out. And I understand that I'm just working hard, well, now to get a better appreciation for when I do get my first kitchen, you know, and it's extra hours, but it's fun and I enjoy it and I love it. But that would be our biggest challenge.
If we talk about this transition between something you're purely doing for fun, purely passion, and then the transition to, you know, the stress of working in a commercial kitchen and then doing your own thing through Kef, how has that additional stress played on your love for cooking? How has it interacted?
Stress is my fuel. The stress is not, since before I was cooking, it's not so much an emotion I like to be afraid of. I embrace stress. Stress is the driving factor for me standing in my kitchen at 5:30, 6 in the morning as the sun is rising and I'm prepping the last of my prep because, you know, we've had a big week and there hasn't been much time to do it throughout the week. But knowing that I've got a product to deliver and I'm not willing to compromise on the level of that product, that's the stress that drives me to work and to push and to get the product out.
Gorgeous. I want to deep dive for a second on Kef. You know, you started your first event, a seating of 20 people, of people who you loved, of your friends. I've seen the growth since then, monthly, you know, supper clubs, reaching events of 120 people. You've done pop-ups, you've done kitchen takeovers. There must have been so many challenges along the way. Can you talk me through one or two of the memorable moments for you coming up and growing Kef?
I think the biggest thing that I've learned in doing this on my own is that we learn from our mistakes. I have made an absurd amount of mistakes in the last year, but I have also learned more than I would have ever learned doing what I've been doing for the last 6 years.
Yeah, talk me through a couple headline acts where you, like there's been a couple for me where I would literally, like, to tell you a story, in Canberra one time, all of our butane torches completely failed. All of them in the same class, and we couldn't solder any of the rings. The teachers were on the phone, they were like going to Bunnings mid-class. I was in Sydney teaching a class, trying to also like talk them through a problem I had no idea how to solve. I remember completely breaking down that day, going to the beach and just crying. I'm like, oh my God, this is never gonna work. Like, that for me would be a headline, memorable moment, a mistake, a challenge along the way. Like, can you talk me through anything like that that really comes to mind when you think of like a shocker or a mistake or a problem?
Okay, so part of what we do is we're able to deliver a certain level of product no matter where we work from. I have had the privilege of working in some of the most incredible houses in Sydney. And the first time I walked into a tiny kitchen would have been a shocker moment for me. I think we were feeding 45 and I'd gotten photos of the kitchen, but as I walked in, I realized they were taken on 0.5 and the space was just a lot smaller than what we'd expected. But you just have to make do. So many things go wrong, I can't actually express that to you. You know, so many things go wrong, but it's about taking it on the chin and moving on with it and finding a way, you know, to solve that. The first time we fed 80 people was for an organization in a really beautiful house. I think we fed 40 at max before that. We had a lot of food left over when we sold out and we ran out of a couple of things. And that's not a great feeling for me to go through, but not one person in that audience knew what we were going through. And that was a really awesome moment for me to know that things that are really bad and cause a lot of stress on my end, people don't even feel, you know. And like you say, for your story, with your class, they probably left with an awesome story, you know, and they went home and they told about this class that had a problem, handled it well, and they move on and they come back, you know?
Yeah, I totally agree, and like that really resonates with me, the sort of pushing through adversity and the fact that if you go out there with confidence, you know, they're not going to know when you miss that keystroke in your masterpiece. It's going to be completely forgotten. And if you save face and just keep going through it and be practical, in the end, it always seems to turn out. One thing I've noticed looking at your transition or your growth story through Kef is that it seemed to really start as a one-man team. There was one apron, one chef in the kitchen, a few helping hands for sure. But I attended your last event and there was an army of people that have got a Kef t-shirt, a Kef apron. That must have been really hard, taking your own personal project and then getting other people involved. Can you talk me through some of the challenges of growing Kef, but specifically growing a team of people around what you do?
It's been awesome. It's been amazing. I started off on my own, working hard, and you know, cutting back on costs that we couldn't afford at the time. But then we realized our worth and we were able to charge more for the work that we were doing, which meant I got to bring in help. And I, very lucky, had some good friends that wanted to get involved and help me. And I've been working with them for the last 8 months, and they know how I work and they know how we go. And we've built an awesome team, like really awesome team of people that are keen to just jump in and help out. Well, work, sorry, not help out. But you know, the whole team, they look forward to it. They love it because it's something different for them. It's so unique. Every Kef we do is so different, whether it's a catering or a supper club. And that feeling of the nerves settling down, you know, when you finish that dinner, everyone falls in love with it. It's awesome. Coming to the end of this mission that we've all worked really hard together on. And there's about a team of 8 of us who I've been working with over the last year. We've got our staff party coming up next week. And it's to answer your question simply, it's been really great growing the team over the last year. I'm extremely grateful to these people. I couldn't have done it without them. Their support for me, ranging from my mother to all of these people wearing an apron, has been ridiculous, and I'm ever so grateful to that.
Yeah, so now you're not only sharing the challenges of providing the events, but also sharing the success. You're sharing the glory, you're sharing that moment at the end of a night where everything's packed up with so many more people, and I'm sure that's even more special.
It's so much more special, really. Like what we always say, that from the start, the debrief at the end of the night that happens with the team is the highlight for everyone. So all of a sudden, to having that debrief with just me and my best mate, who was waitering at the time, to having it with 9 other people was special and awesome. Yeah.
So, Kfir, we've talked about the early inspiration, we've talked about the challenges and the growth. Now I really want to deep dive into the craft, you know, what you do. I think you're best known for championing seasonality and really letting the produce dictate your menus. Where has that kind of style emerged from?
My taste to refined cooking came through social media. As I was always working takeaway, you know, we've kind of come up in this age where Instagram had just kicked off, as you know, we were getting our first phones and all that, and very quickly chefs realized that they could monetize off of sharing industry secrets that one would have to work years and years in the industry to learn. And where doom scrolling comes into play, you know, it worked out quite well for me, where my doom scrolling on the way to school, on the train on the way to school, was all these cooking videos that I was actually retaining information out of. So I had some sort of general idea on what refined cooking meant without working in the industry. But then when I stepped into Sean's Panorama, man, the way they value their produce it's unheard of. It's crazy. It's awesome. The way they handle their suppliers and deal with their suppliers, it just taught me so much. And it was my first time seeing any of that as well. So to see it at such a high standard for the first time really set an awesome standard.
Yeah, they totally set the bar, I guess, with your very first sort of experience, which would have been super special. It sounds like those two people running the restaurant at Sean's Panorama really inspired you. Can you talk about their sort of commitment to produce and how that's translated through what you do?
Through them, I learned what suppliers they were using. There's not all too many actually in this scene, But I reached out to all these guys and I explained my situation. Hey, I'm 22, I'm passionate, I've got a project going on, happy to pay a premium for higher quality produce. What can we do? And all of their responses, and I'd say to them, it's a really small business, supper club once a month, a couple caterings at the time. I can't order a lot at a time. And they say, we're just here to help. That's awesome. You want to use us, we want to help you. And I built cool relationships with all of these suppliers in the same way that I'd seen Sam and Sean doing, and chatting with them. And it's a matter of, hey, what's good? Hey Kfir, how are you? This is what's good. And that's where it goes from there.
Yeah, tell me more about this process. You are getting these farmers or producers or suppliers on the phone, they're telling you what is good, and then you're building a menu from there. Do you find that constricting, or do you find that even more creative?
That's funny, because the answer is both, actually. Where it's constricting, because you're working out of a variety of produce, it challenges you to be more creative, So you're using the limited selection of what you might have, and you've got to make that a Kef-worthy product, And I love that, and that creative challenge is what I think I'm quite good at, and why I love doing this so much, because I see that challenge, and it actually reminds me of when I used to come home from work when I was 18, 19, and I'd get home at 1, 2, 3 in the morning, having not really eaten and being hungry, and open the fridge and seeing, this is what we've got, let's go, and spending time putting something together and spending time and effort to make, not to throw stuff on a plate, but to make a yummy meal.
Brilliant. I'm sure there's so many chefs out there that can resonate with this challenge, When you are dealing with just seasonal fresh produce, there are limited options as far as the ingredients, and you have to then get creative in the kitchen, which I think is you said you're good at, you are definitely good at. I went to the last one, the menu was incredible, the food was incredible. I also noticed that doing what you're doing through Kef, Instagram has played a role. You are posting about the supper clubs that you are doing, that's how I first came across you. And the way you make your food look is so beautiful online. How have you approached plating or making your food look as good as it tastes?
I think a big part of eating is, I think a lot of people think this, but it's eating with our eyes. That initial reaction when the plate hits the table, and people either go, or wow. And if you're setting the precedent and you're setting the bar with an initial wow, it's hard to go lower from there, Obviously, it's so important that everything tastes good, and it does. We taste, we try, we season, but then going above that next level is to make it look as good as it tastes. So that's a big challenge for us, but I really enjoy that, because I find the beauty in it, and I enjoy the beauty behind it, and I enjoy taking that extra minute to make sure it looks as good as it tastes, than as opposed to not.
So it's important to you, and I feel like there's two elements to doing what you do so well. There's the plating aspect of it, but there's also the getting that plate online. Can you talk me through your process for making a dish look good to start, and then we can talk about how we translate that to your Instagram feed?
Yeah, so, I guess the process goes, find out what ingredients we'll be using, merge that with the techniques, which are Middle Eastern cooking techniques for me, find a correlation between the two of them. Then we've got our dish. Cookbooks and social media play a massive part in that as well, getting inspiration and seeing what other people are doing, and learning based off that. I've got a really awesome cookbook that is it's a Bible. It's called the Flavor Bible, and it connects flavors together. So we connect the flavors, we make the dish, and then it's about how can we make this look as good as it tastes.
So you're not only drawing inspiration from Instagram, but you're almost then contributing back to it by posting these incredible dishes, events, supper clubs, meals online. How have you gone about that online presence? It's also important these days to promote what you're doing and let people know about it. How have you approached Kef's online Instagram or online presence?
I guess I was practicing since before Kef launched. I've always loved taking photos as well. I think it ties in quite nicely with the whole creative side. But taking photos to showcase what I just spent 3, 4, 5 hours making before it gets devoured in 30 seconds, because there is so much work that goes into the way that it looks. It's nice to appreciate that, and I think people very much appreciate that when they see it without knowing how it tastes. It's a lot of work to take photos and to make sure stuff's photographed, and often it does get missed, but when it doesn't get missed, it's about taking the time, finding the angle, finding the lighting, and getting the best photo that we can.
You do such a good job of making everything look great on the plate, look great online. How do you make things also feel and look so good when it comes to an experience along a table at a new venue?
So that goes back to the challenge of every venue being new. We've got our non-variables that we bring with us everywhere to, elevate the space, white tablecloth, candles, flowers, and that often does a great job. But then the beauty of the fact that what we're doing is unique is that we can play with elements that the houses or the venues have already got to offer.
So you're drawing on both your own style, which is kind of a common thread through what you do, and also then integrating the unique features of every different venue. How do you both stay true to your own style while also making it a little bit different each time?
So, I think we've touched base on stuff not being perfect. Nothing is ever perfect, and we know that going into all of these events. We just do our best in the time that we have to make it look up to the standard that we want it to look. And often it comes together quite naturally. I will also say that a lot of people have seen a beauty behind what we're doing. And I'm extremely lucky that I've had a lot of people keen to get involved and help out. At almost all of our dinners, someone's keen to come, take photos, get fed, and they'll often take direction on that because they'll see that I'm either cooking or doing other things. But it's really trusting other people and the team that know how we work and saying, hey, can you just make it look good?
Beautiful. So we've got tons of these different supper club events. You've done one a month for over a year now. We've talked about some of the mistakes, some of the lows. I want to know, is there a particular one or a particular project that you've worked on that you're super proud of and is your sort of shining crown jewel?
This is such an awesome question, because yes, absolutely, and it was our most recent supper club. I am so lucky that I just am surrounded with the community I'm surrounded with. At the dinner before that, often we're working on tight budgets, everyone's really busy, we fed 50 people working 5 hands, so we're always quite locked in, there's not much time for deep conversation because there's a lot of things to do. But if the girl that came up to me and introduced herself and offered her house at that dinner, that got a good amount of attention because she was really keen to open her space up, and when I went to visit it, it was awesome, and there was potential to do the first style of dinner that I'd been looking at doing in that year. And that was a celebration of food, music, and art. And often, we're only able to fit 40, max 50 people in a house on one big table. And people aren't really that keen on having a standing event because it does mean that we need to bring more people in. But this girl fell in love with the idea when I pitched it to her, and she was really keen to host a celebration of food, music, and arts where people had the opportunity to stand and dance and mingle and not be locked in at a table for the duration of the event. So when that came about, I reached out to Mika from Gems and Jams, a dear friend, organizing these awesome events, collaborating music and artists and jewelers and showcasing that. And I thought, let's work together, So we sold 80 tickets. We had an exhibition with 2 artists and 4 jewelers. We had 2 DJs with the most incredible speakers you would have ever seen. And it was the most special because it was the most amount of hands we'd ever had working together to create this beautiful moment. And that was awesome. When we were, you were there, when it was the 25 of us standing in that courtyard together, that was unreal, really unreal.
That sounds like such an incredible moment and almost like pinnacle from everything you're doing. You've started with these sort of smaller, intimate 20-person dinners, and now you're managing to execute on events that are standing 80 people. And I think it's so beautiful that that opportunity almost came around because of the things that you're doing and the passion you have for food. You've inspired other people to throw themselves at you, to get involved, and I think that's like really, really special. At Gems and Jams, that was an insane event, definitely one of the the most cool things we've done as a brand. And I think your passion for food blended together with the music and the art that you've already spoken about was just such an incredible mixture together. It made such a great dish, if you will, all served up together, and you did an incredible job pulling it off.
Thank you.
So Kfir, we've talked about your initial inspirations. You, your mum, in the kitchen, cooking together. You've gone on such a journey since then, and your craft has evolved so much since those initial sessions with your mum. I really want to know what inspires you now, what really fuels your desire to cook at the moment.
I'm inspired by the small things. Music, what other people are doing, the mood that I'm in. And what drives me is where I want to be in 10 years time, in 15 years time, in 20 years time. That's my drive.
Yeah, talk me through, like you said, you've got this dream. You're working now to get somewhere in 15, 20 years. You have something in your head, I imagine, of that Kfir in 15, 20. What is he doing? What is he cooking? Where is he? Can you just talk me through where that sort of North Star is for you?
So I'll tell you, I think like anyone in any industry whatsoever, in order to be the best, you've got to work hard. I know that long term, that's where I want to be, making people happy through food, working off my hobby and doing what I love. And I'm kind of taking it a little bit more short term than that. In 2 weeks, I move overseas to go strengthen my craft. I will come back when that's ready. The last year of this passion project that is Kef is just about getting myself prepared for what running a business is like. I read a long time ago that everyone needs to fail, you know, and way before Kef was even an idea, I knew that I wanted to set up a business to fail. Which didn't exactly happen with Kef, and it's kind of gotten me to a point that's a little bit confusing and upsetting, moving overseas and having built, you know, being at the peak of our point. But it really is just a short-term plan, taking it step by step to get as good as I can get, really.
Yeah. So I guess it's about, right now, you're focused on sharpening your skill set as a chef, as a business owner, as someone who's crafting these incredible experiences. And later on, you're not sure exactly where that will take you, but you want to be good, you want to be the best, and you want to continue to be authentic to this original kind of genesis of cooking, which is connecting people through food. What do you think will change in the next, couple of years that will take you, or how do you see your craft evolving in the next couple of years? Where are you moving it forward, or do you not have a destination in mind at all?
I don't want to be a chef forever. My journey now is to learn the ropes of all the different variables that are involved in being hospitable, and I guess essentially running a restaurant. After working a little bit in all the behind the bar and on the floor and in the kitchen, I think the kitchen is the one that needs the most time. I'm quite lucky that, talking to people, and I enjoy making people feel comfortable and welcoming them in. But the food is a skill set that one needs to have if they want to be selling food. It doesn't necessarily mean I want to be cooking it for the rest of my life, but definitely getting those skills honed out over the next few years so that when the time does come, I'm able to work with someone and potentially teach them the way that I'd like things to go.
100%, and I think it sounds like you're super passionate about the experience side. You want to be running the whole operation, and you know that it's going to take really good skill set with food, good skill set on the floor, good skill set behind the bar, and you're kind of building those things out with a longer term vision of seeing yourself running an operation that is connecting people through food, but you're really interested in the more broader experience of running the entire operation A to Z rather than just focusing on the food. Does that sound true to what you're going for?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's so many successful people have told me that hard work equals success. So as long as we're working hard, doing what we want to do, you'll be taking something out of whatever you're doing. And I've put so many hours into, I'm sure you have too, you know, I know you have put so many hours into doing what we're doing, and I don't plan to stop that, you know, just putting in the hours and seeing where it takes me.
Yeah, I think there's a beauty to just focusing on the work for now and letting the results come later. Kef not only has these beautiful dishes, but also such a gorgeous online profile through Instagram. How has social media influenced the things that you're doing?
To put it simply, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing without social media. One side of what I do is, you know, the confidence and the ability, I guess, to work hard and present a product to a group of paying people. That's the most important part. But then the other side of it is getting this product out to people that without social media would have no idea what we're doing. And that's a really beautiful part of our generation and where we are today, that you can have the drive and you can learn on the way whilst, you know, you start this project. And I think back in the day, you would have had to get to the top of your craft before launching, and now we're able to multitask, and people are learning off each other and learning together, and our generation that's coming up together, I think, is a really awesome, helpful one that likes to support each other. And without social media, our second dinner wouldn't have been full with randoms, you know? So that's awesome. It's the new website, Instagram. Yeah.
You've been on such a journey through food along the way, and you've had ups, you've had downs. You would have learnt a lot during that time. Can you talk me through your biggest lesson so far?
So many lessons. The biggest takeaway, if I had to pick one, would be putting into practice the hard work equals success formula, where if we put our head down and we work hard and we're learning from what we're doing, and you know, we're not prioritizing work-life balance so much so, but really just working hard, then we can do anything. You can do anything if you set your mind to it. I didn't know how to cook professionally 3 years ago, you know. Instagram was a driving factor that taught me how to do that, but it was about the hours of standing there and practicing how to chop a cucumber nicely that led that when I got into Sean's and they saw my chopping skills, they weren't able to pick that I'd never had a professional job before. So hard work and patience equals success, I think.
Kef, this was awesome. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.